I want to begin by just thanking Elizabeth and Andy for the opportunity. I've had over the last couple of months, I started my own chaplaincy service. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a bit. But I've had the opportunity to go to a variety of these networking events, and this one by far is the most professional and excellently done one that I've been to. So congratulations to you both. I did not recognize or realize how famous I was by getting to do this until recently. Sean Baker sent me a photograph of one of those electronic advertisement boards, and it was above a urinal in a men's room. So I don't know. I don't know if that's fame or not, but but thank you, Sean. Thank you for the shout out. So the thing that I want to talk to you about today. I was originally asked to speak back in May, and because of some scheduling conflicts, they switched it to October. Back in May, I had just been released from the most excellent job in the world, laid off from that, and I would have probably talked about what I had done. But as the months have progressed, I wanted to talk about something totally different. Today, I want to discuss with you the topic of what do you do when the wolves come? And the wolves refer to things like your adversity, your challenges, the things that you faced in your life. What do you do when those things happen to you? And I'm going to tell my story and how I've dealt with them personally. But here's the thing that I know, that if we had a discussion in this room, if you were able to tell your stories, and then those stories were somehow created some type of energy, we could probably fuel one of Elon Musk's, Teslas, or one of his rockets to Mars, whatever. Because you all have tremendous stories, and they're inside of you, and we need to hear them. We need to hear what you've gone through, what has happened to you in your life, because it will help you, I think, for one thing, but it'll also help us as we navigate trials in our lives. So someone asked me, what qualifies you to share about this particular topic? And I'll tell you that I'm going to give you a 30,000-foot view of my life. You hear people all the time as a chaplain, as a pastor, you go to services, and if people start talking about themselves, it's like someone coming back from a vacation and wanting to show you all of their pictures. By slide 3, you're already nodding off. So I'm going to give you a high-level view of what took place in my life. So I'm actually the product of a Native American father and an Irish ancestry mother. Both of those two were prone to alcohol abuse and relationship issues. So my father was married 4 times during his life, and my mother was married 7 times during her life. So you can imagine the people that were in and out of my life as a child. The thing about my mother is that when I was 3 years old, she departed. She left my sister and I with my dad, and then she went off to live her life. And so the things that happened in her personal life didn't really affect my sister and I. But when we were 3, we moved in with my Native American grandmother. And so during those years, it wasn't a really bad situation, but my father and my grandmother both had to work. So during the day, they would make sure that we were prepared, me as a 3-year-old and my sister as a 2-year-old, and they would have to go to work. And so we weren't cared for during the day. We just were, here's the food, here's what you do, you just take care of yourself. So we were very self-reliant during those young years. And we did very well. When I tell my story, people go, wow, that's awful, because you as a parent would think, how in the world would I leave my 3-year-old alone? And you would say, I wouldn't do that. But we managed. We did it, and we did it successfully, my sister and I. So what I'm saying in that little episode of my life is that I had to grow up very quickly. My sister, of course, was not as smart as me. Let's just put it that way. I'm just joking. And so I was the leader in the household at that young age. So about age first grade, when I started first grade, my dad remarried. And he had a tendency, all I could think of is that he was choosing women when he was drunk, because this woman was awful. I call her Mommy Dearest. And if those of you who are old enough to remember that movie, the famous actress, she adopted a young girl. When the young girl hung the clothes up with iron hangers, then she would beat her with those iron hangers. That was that woman. And so from first grade till he divorced her in 11th grade, it was a consistent battle in our home. There was rage, there was anger, there was all types of frustration, there were all types of abuse, basically. There was abuse if you used too much toilet paper. There was abuse if you chewed with your mouth open. There was abuse if you didn't make your bed, if it was sunny outside, or if it was rainy outside. All of those things were reason for her to be angry. So she was a very angry person. My father, the only thing I can think about those years of my life was that he was not sober enough to recognize what was taking place in our lives. But he was working, and they both worked about an hour and a half away from the house. And so he just wasn't involved a lot during that time. Now, my father was a good man. And you think, how can you say that about that after having said what you just said? Well, he was a good man to the very best of his ability. He never missed anything that I did in school. He would make sure that he was there for that. He would come to every football game. He would come to every play or every school activity that I was involved in. However, he would never show up sober. And so that was a constant battle as well in my personal life. So how did I compensate for that when I was growing up? Well, I created this fantasy world where we were the perfect family and I was the perfect child. I was a straight A student. I was disciplined with athletics. I was the quarterback on the football team. I was the salutatorian in my high school class. I was class president. I did all of those things. Because I wanted to create an environment where no one else in the town that we lived in really knew what was actually going on in my home. Now, all of that sounds very impressive until I tell you the community that we lived in was a population of about 500 people, and I had 9 in my graduating class. So everybody graduated in the top 10. So I didn't have to tell you that, but I did. So after that type of growing up and that type of lifestyle, and just living a very protected, very isolated, I was on point at all times. I had to make sure what was going on in every environment that I was in, out of fear, out of maybe we would be found out, maybe someone would understand what was actually taking place at home. So I was that person. I was trying to protect myself, my sister, and I was really trying to protect them as well, so that no one in the whole community would know what they were really like. So when I went off to college, as soon as I could, I left that all behind. And it was the first time in my life where I had the opportunity to just be me and to take care of me. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college. I joined a fraternity. That's where I learned social interaction, because I didn't have a lot of that when I was growing up. I just figured life out. I'd learned to drive when I was about 12 years old, because you grow up on a farm, in a farming community. You're driving tractors, you're driving farm trucks, you're driving all sorts of things at a very young age. But I grew up knowing how to drive, but I became very proficient at it when on several occasions my father would drink and drive and would put us in a ditch. And so I would scoot him over, get in the truck, and off we would go. And this was pulling a trailer with 4 horses in it. I would get home, unload the horses, unload all the equipment, and leave my dad in the truck and just go inside. So I was very self-sufficient, very self-reliant, did not really need anyone else in my life. And so being in the social setting of a university and in the fraternity, I learned a lot of social interaction. And that's where I began to build friendships and relationships. I didn't go home for holidays because they weren't celebrating holidays. I didn't go home for anything, honestly. Birthdays, didn't receive any recognition for those. So that's where I got my social interaction. I would find somebody to go home with for a holiday. I would find somebody that would say, hey, fraternity brother would take you take you out for your birthday. So that's where I got all my social interaction. I forgot to tell you that when I was in about the third grade, I was introduced to Christ. And so my faith was very important to me. It was a place for me where I found peace, I found contentment, I found comfort. And all of the chaos that was going on in my home life was counteracted by being in those places. So I was introduced to the faith in a Pentecostal church. I started attending Church of Christ, Methodist, and Baptist when I was elementary and high school. I joined the Catholic Church because that's what all my fraternity brothers were. And so faith has always been a significant part of my life. Even though none of my family were involved in that, it was my thing. And so that's the thing that I gravitated toward. And so that gave me the comfort that I needed. So when I graduated from college, I met my awesome wife, and she grew up in a family that was totally opposite of my family. And that was my first concern, is that how in the world would this young woman who grew up in such a perfect environment accept someone who did not come from such a perfect environment? And they embraced me, they loved me, they celebrated me. It was like Christmas every day, honestly. And so my wife and I, we've never argued, we've never fought, we've never had a day of conflict. Somebody just said bullshit. No, we've had our ups and downs, but I lived my life as a child in my young adult days at a level 10. And there is nothing beyond that. College, being married, having amazing sons and their daughter-in-laws, there's nothing that has ever risen to that level for me. I don't see life as a level 10 in just about everything, which is, kind of challenging for my wife. She sees things at a little higher level than I do, and I try to understand and try to empathize with her, but it just, many times I'm just like, what are you upset about? And so after that, after I met my wife, we moved to Missouri, and I pastored a church there for 20 years. And church was great, except for the people. And so, of course, that's a pastor joke. But you navigate that. You understand that. You understand that people have had challenges, and the very religious people were the hardest ones to deal with. The people that were honest and open and transparent, and they had a relationship with Christ, those were the people that I connected the best with. So I had the opportunity to go from student pastor all the way to senior pastor in that church. And so loved that, loved the church, but at some point, the intolerance of the cold in the Missouri area, or God called me back to Texas, we came back here. And so loved being in the Houston area. I came back here, got an opportunity at Fellowship of the Woodlands. They call it Woodlands Church now. And it was at that point that I met the most amazing man in my life, and that was Steve Pate. And he was running a company. He had started a company called Strike, which is an oil and gas energy services provider. Did I get that right? Yeah. And so I did everything from A to Z in the oil and gas industry. And he hired me. He had a very innovative idea. He said, I want a chaplain for my employees. And so everything I did for the church, I began to do for his employees. And that was counseling, and that was weddings, and that was funerals, and that was everything that they needed. I was there for them. I got to travel out to the fields to be with the employees there. I got to just be a part of their lives. And so it was during that 15 years, from 2007 to 2022, that I had my dream job, and I loved it. And those were just the most excellent. That was the most excellent time in my life. And Steve Pate is an individual, and he said he's looking for a new job. He's the type of person that loves people and he wants to invest in people, and he wants to make money, of course, while he's doing that. But he gives people more grace than anyone I know. And so I was so appreciative of that. And so in May of 2022, April or May of 2022, an investment company bought Strike. And they no longer needed the services of a chaplain. And so God and I left. I took God with me and just said, that's how this will work. I told them I was going to pray for them or against them, and they could choose. So that knocked the wind out of my sails. I have to be tremendously honest with you. You love a job, you love the people you work with, you love everything about it, and then all of a sudden it's just not there. And I've told several people that when the music stops, you're the only one standing on the dance floor, and everyone else just goes away, right? And that's the way it was for me. I've maintained some good relationships and some good friendships, but the way in which I gave myself 24 hours to be a little bitch. And then I woke up and just said, no, you can't do this. You got to get back on the saddle. You got to figure this out. So I decided that I loved being a chaplain so much that I would start my own chaplaincy service. And so that's what I did. Got my own LLC, not being an entrepreneur at all, not having a bit of business sense. I decided this is what I'm going to do because I can. I've endured a tremendous amount of adversity and challenges in my life. This is just another hill to climb. So I did that and launched out there. Everyone's, that's such a great idea. That's awesome. Well, here's the contract. And people look at you and go, well, not for me. So it's been that kind of battle. And you all are familiar with that as well. You know what it's like for people to love and think that your idea is perfect and awesome and excellent, and yet they're not signing on the dotted line. So it's been that thing. It's been a mental gymnastics for me personally. So as I was processing how do you deal with challenges in your life, I made up a few notes on how I've handled the challenges in my life. First off, you need to build a tribe. And a tribe is a group of people that you do life with. And I've noticed that over the years, it's been a variety of different people. When I was in Missouri, it was a group of people there. When I moved here, it was a group of people here. But those are the people in your lives that love you and they support you and they scold you when you're being a little baby. Not afraid to tell you that. They love you in all capacities and they want the very best for you. And so they're there for you. You think about the Native American culture and they had tribes. And so everyone was responsible for a different role within the context of that tribe. And those are the types of people that you need in your life. And you don't wait until you hit a crisis before you start building a tribe. Tribes need to be built along the way. People you trust, people there are people that come and go in your lives, but those are the people that you begin to then lean upon. I've got so many excellent people who are entrepreneurs, who do have great ideas, and who are able to speak into my life. So the things that I'm lacking, these are the things that these people have. So build a tribe. Number 2, navigate change. I'm going to read what I wrote here. Challenges often usher in a dynamic season of change. Don't resist the change. Learn how to use the inevitable change to your advantage. If you spend your time fighting the change, it will take away from the time you need to create success during a time of change. Ask yourself, what is this change trying to teach me? Change can allow us to take inventory of who and what we are. Change can show us who we are, who our true friends are. Change can show us what is truly valuable in our lives and can give us the opportunity to dump the things that are frivolous and petty. So as you're navigating change, and most of us fight against change, don't we? We don't like change. We don't like the fact that things aren't the same as they were yesterday. But when change abruptly enters your life, you have to navigate it, or it will navigate you. So navigate the change. Reject fear. That's an easy thing to tell people. Just reject it. Well, just don't be afraid. The Bible, in fact, says there are 365 verses. This is what I've heard. I didn't look up. What do you do? What's the app you can look up to see if it's correct or not? Anyway, I didn't do that. But it says that there's 365 verses in the Bible, one for every day of the year, that says, do not fear. Well, the truth is, if I am reliant upon God to take care of my life, then there really isn't a good, huge reason for fear. And so we need to reject the fear that says you're not smart enough, you're not educated enough, you're too old. All of those things then began, they have been a part of my life as I've stepped out to start this new business. And so I've had to reject them. I've had to say, no, that's not true. That's not something that is really adequate. That's not something that's really a part of my life. So reject the fear. I have 8 points here, so I'm blasting through them. Keep moving forward. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other and do the next right thing. Refuse to give yourself permission to isolate and to be idle. So you don't have I don't know about you, but there's not a lot of resources that gives me permission to just be idle, to just sit back and say, well, it's going to come. I'm just going to trust God. No, God says pray, but have action. Don't just sit at home waiting for that thing to come. You go after it. You pursue it. You call the next person. You call the person that said, hey, I think it's a great idea. Let's get together. Weeks go by, they don't call you. You call them. So keep moving forward. Assess your levels. So a lot of people live every day of their lives at a level 10. I didn't get the parking spot closest when I went to Macy's. Oh my gosh. Or, there's a whole lot of people that just freak out over the simplest things. My life told me, there is nothing in comparison to the childhood I had to give me permission to go to a level 10. The house would have to be on fire for me to get to that place. And then it would only be temporary because it would get put out. So it's just like they say, a deer will be grazing, they will sense danger, and then they will flee, fight or flight. And the next thing they go back to doing, once the danger is past, then they rest again and go back to grazing. Unfortunately, humans tend to stay at a level 10, a stress level, as though the fear is still out there. And so what I'm saying to you is assess your levels. Yeah, maybe something is a level 6, 7, 8, maybe a 10, but don't give it permission to be at that level all the time. Your system, your physical system, can't handle that. I use a scripture for this one. 1 Corinthians 13:13 says, And now three remain. And now there remain faith, abiding trust in God and His promises, hope, confident expectation of eternal salvation, love, unselfish love for others growing out of God's love for me. These three, the choicest graces, but the greatest of these is love. As the wolves do their best to bite and snarl and tear at your soul, keep these three of the choicest graces foremost in your mind and attitude. Nothing can bring you down whenever you keep these activated in your life. So faith, hope, and love. Keep those things at the foremost of your mind. Always have that faith. Tomorrow's going to be a better day because I have this tremendous hope and I just love the life that God has given me. And if He had chosen to do something different, it would have been that way, but clearly He didn't. So I'm going to love the life that's been given to me. Reject negativity. Stop proclaiming and professing the very things that you don't want in your life. I'm never going to get a job. I'm going to lose the house. I'm so sad. I'm so depressed. Stop professing those things. Flip them around and say, I'm going to get a job. I'm not going to lose this house. And even if I lost this house, I would get another one in some way. I'm going to have a place to live. I'm going to have food on the table. I'm going to be successful. And even at this age, I don't think that there is anything that I can't accomplish. I believe I can accomplish just about anything. And I'm not too old, not too ill-prepared. I'm going to be a success. There will be in number 8, there will be a conclusion to the challenging season. We don't get the chance to choose the wolves that come to our door, but we do have the chance to choose how we're going to respond to that wolf. At the end of this season of challenge, what do you want to be said of you? Will it be said of you that you were angry, disappointed, vengeful, and hopeless? Or will it be said of you that you trusted God more, you saw Him working in mysterious ways, felt His presence during the bleakest moments, and that you grew stronger, more resilient, and tenacious? And I used a quote from Winston Churchill, never let a good crisis go to waste. So that's my encouragement to you today. And here's what I want to do. I have just 2 minutes. as Elizabeth approaches me. Stay away. And I may not have time for this, but I want to say to you, I believe that you have a story to tell. I believe that you have actions and things that are in your personal lives. If you were looking at this list that I gave, tribes and reject negativity, etc., what would you add to it? What would you take from it? Anything we're going to do the pop-up thing real quickly. Not everyone has to speak, but just real quickly. What would you add to that? Anything? Accountability, absolutely. Having accountability in your life is an important factor. And that goes in with the tribes.
John Wayne said courage is fear with boots up.
Yeah.
So you're going to have fear. Yeah.
I got my boots on.
You're going to have fear. Do it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Face the fear.
Embrace the now. For every challenge is an opportunity you probably did not see before.
That's right. Exactly. Embrace the now.
Give yourself permission to rest.
Yeah. There we go. I've done that. Netflix. Me and
24 hours.
me and Netflix are best friends.
Walk by faith, not by sight.
There we go. Amen to that one. Yes.
Being nimble, to piggyback off of your quote.
Yeah.
General Patton said, no battle plan survives its execution.
Yeah.
Come up with a vision, but when you go to do it, be nimble.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Be kind. Everybody's fighting a battle you know nothing.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Very important.
Be willing to forgive yourself.
And forgive others, right? Yeah.
And always find the fun.
Always find the fun. That's right. Yes, sir.
Be able to learn to love yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And keep pursuing. That's right. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. And the famous Terry Weaver. Yes, sir.
I just want to say I'm Ky's number 3 fan. Great job, man. I love you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I wanted to conclude with why I have chosen to be a chaplain. Here's my idea. And my chaplaincy idea is not crisis management. I want to be relational. I want to be in a company. I want to be with their people. I want to be with people who do not have a spiritual connection. And maybe it's job related. Maybe it's church hurt. I don't know what it is. I want to be in the midst of them. I want to live life with them and be there for them. But why do I do that? Because in your place of employment, you have someone who is not behaving properly at home. And there is some child out there who is looking for someone to step into their parent's life and say, hey, I'm going to help you navigate life, if for no other reason that it gives your children the opportunity to not have the experience that I had. So that's why I'm doing what I do. So thank you.